So, welcome to Happy Hour at the Old Timer Tavern. It is 5 o'clock on a Thursday, and that means we are off the clock and on to the dragons. I am one of the two hosts, Lantern Noir, and with me is the effervescent
Graybeard of Graybeard's Tavern.
Good to have you here. How's the week been going, man?
Oh, been a crazy work week. So, good to be here. Interestingly enough, my indoor adventures game for this evening got postponed, so we won't be playing Masks tonight. So, most sadness. Nah, you get. We'll be back next week. We were at a crucial moment, and one character couldn't show, and when it's streaming, it'd be disjointed to be like, the heroes are finally revealing their secret identities to one another, and one of the heroes vanishes somehow. They're just gone.
And that's the thing about super ladies. They're always trying to share their secret identity with you. Thinks it'll help increase the intimacy. I don't care who you are.
Oh, man. Yeah, you can tell I came straight from work. I never wear white, so I'm feeling like right.
I just swapped out my my sport coat for the sweatshirt. So, and that is, I've adopted that as my persona now. Band or other graphic T-shirts with a corduroy jacket. I'm trying to find more that have the elbow patches.
Oh.
But no, I'm
like tweed with elbow patches or leather.
If I can find the tweed, I will totally do the tweed sport coats. Right now I'm selling for corduroy because it's cheaper.
the steepling.
I am a math teacher. I am in my 40s. Starting at the end of next year, I am always going to be eligible to retire at the drop of a hat. It's time I start looking the part.
There it is.
Let's bring the costuming department on board. No, but I'm still kind of coming down off a high from last night because we had our first session of Candlekeep Mysteries.
Yeah.
And it was just an amazingly fun group. And we're going to talk about it more later when we get talking about session zeros. Yeah. Because we did we did no adventuring. So there was no monsters, no fights, no combats, no initiatives. Just let's get through the setup. For the game, and that was a really fun night, and I needed it because my Sunday night game got canceled because one person got sick. My Monday night game got canceled because 3 people had conflicts.
Oh wow!
So we didn't run the mystery, and then Tuesday we didn't meet up.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was starting to kind of do the do I actually do this still? Is this still a thing?
I did have my Saturday night Grognard games. I realize I dog those guys, but also we've been friends for 30 years, so that's why I feel I can dog them a little bit. And besides, they're like I said, they won't let me share this, but picture wise. But one day I put on my daughter's hat with fox ears. And took a selfie and sent it to them. And the next thing I know, one of them comes on and they've got Winnie the Pooh plushy hat on their head. And then the next one comes on, it's got a teddy bear plushy hat on their head. And then my brother comes on and he's got like a fake Viking helmet knit cap on his head. So then, of course, I ran down the hall, grabbed a panda plushy hat, and put the panda. I really want to take all 4 of those pictures and put them together in some kind of, Andy Warhol-ish, poster, and then just put like Grognard's, dorks for over 30 years or some silliness,
Well, that makes yeah. I mean, just because we're old doesn't mean we don't have a sense of humor anymore, as it were. So, that's awesome though that you guys are still getting together. I'm looking forward to my Sunday night games meeting up again this week, and looks like we're on track, so that'll be good.
Nice.
To get back into that. So because I'm starting off a new game, I wanted to talk this week about that session 0 stuff.
Yeah.
Do you want to kick off with some of the things you think are really critical to do in session 0?
Sure. So you, as we said, one of my favorite games is Dungeon World, and it has a great session 0 is supposed to be your first session, because character building, it takes minutes. It just takes minutes. So everything else about the adventure is literally the best way. You know, the way it tells you to run your session 0 in your first session is to just say, "Oh, you're an elf. Okay, so what are elves like in this world?" And and go, "Okay, the adventure is what are we after?" And then just someone will say, you know, something, you know, the statue of Commander Akbar, you know, and we'll say, okay, and then you say, and where is that at? And then someone will say, the bog of eternal stench, and you're like, oh, okay. And that's just how you literally are supposed to begin your campaign of Dungeon World. It's just like, what is it? Where are we at? Okay, and you're running from werewolves. Werewolves are chasing you, and that's how you begin. What do you do? So I like that kind of start for session 0, but it all depends on the system and what you're playing and whatnot. If it's D&D, it's usually a lot more involved, and I usually do pre-session 0 pitch is what I usually do. I usually say, this is what I want, or this is what I'm looking for, or the last Firefly-esque space game I wrote, I literally made forms that were applications, job applications, for this space, this company, this Rycotech, and I sent them all application forms, and it literally listed down and had, you know, we are looking for a pilot, a captain, you know, and listed that kind of stuff, and they were to check off their preferences in it, and then the I forget, job areas are, you know, a dystopian future, a cheerful exploration. You know, they were listed like campaign types so that they could choose, really. You know, I would see who wanted to play what, and then I would say, okay, great, 4 out of the 5 of you want to do dark dystopian. Not, hey, 5, is that cool? We'll do 10 sessions of this. Like I said, I try to start with a pitch, and then try to put a party together, because I really like differing dynamics. You know, it's okay if the party has 3 fighters, whatever, I guess, but I would much rather have something I can, you know, work with, where it's not, if there's 3 fighters in the party, I have a fighty thing, all 3 of them are going to want to be in the spotlight for the fighty thing. And that's just a little harder to write good story for, I guess.
That works really well, and that's the kind of thing. I mean, thinking about session 0 as that first time y'all get together, and I kind of had forgotten about the pre-session 0 pitch, because I did that. I do that pretty traditionally, where I think I want to kind of run this game. So here's kind of what I'm thinking. Are you in?
Yeah.
And it gives a lot of room for players to say, I think I can do that. There's some things like, would it be okay if? Which my answer is almost always yes. But it's like the relationships I have with most of the people I play with. It's like, that sounds like a great thing. Can I do this within what you're thinking? And how do we make that work? So like my Sunday night game, I pitched it as, you know, this is a mostly human-centric world. You can be anything else you want to be, but I'm going to tell you up front, the plan is humans are the race, the normal race. Everyone else gets kind of a funny sideways look. Hey, Hazel, welcome aboard. Glad to have you hanging out in chat today. And so that kind of is like that part of that pitch.
Yeah.
And I love the idea too of that. Hey, everyone here, let's create this. Because when you have a system that gives you that freedom, that's like totally an amazing thing to use. Dungeons and Dragons, traditionally now it feels like it's almost the opposite, which is it's a lot of like, all right, we have the rule books. I kind of want to play a Genasi. So can everyone help me figure out all of this stuff about Genasi? And then everyone coming through the rules at the same time going, well, here's an interesting thing I just saw. Which is also not a bad strategy. We use it in school. We have everybody read the same passage, read different parts, and share out what caught their eye.
Right.
Ironically, we call it group read. In D&D, we call it panicked character creation. So
yeah, I'm horrible because I like to choose my character last and play filler to the rest of the party because one, played a billion frippin' characters, and two, then if I see an opportunity to play something unique, or if most of the time, particularly in stream games, I see what I perceive as not necessarily a weakness, but a spot that could be filled. And so a lot of times I end up playing the fighter type and the support character, that type deal. But that's just me as a person and a player.
My excuse is I have too many ideas, so if you don't take some of the things off the table, I'll never settle on one. So it's like I want to pick last because I don't know what I want to do, and if you tell me what I can't do, it gets easier.
Yes.
Which I was mean last night because I said we can have a party of all rogues.
Right.
I'm down with that. I mean,
yeah.
We'll figure out how to make it work. I don't care.
My last home game had it had a wizard, a bard, a rogue, and a druid. No fighter type at all. Not one. No tank, and they kicked butt. They just literally kicked butt because it was area control DPS. It was brutal.
Well, that sounds like my old EverQuest days. We don't need a tank. We have an enchanter.
Yes.
That was a solid strategy back in the day. So we've got we do the pre-pitch, and then we've got them at session 0, and we're laying out what we're thinking. And some games are really good because, as you said, you can say, this is session 0. Your job is to build the world. A lot of other campaigns might be, because I tend to write a lot of world stuff. When I ran the game with my wife a few years back, that was like part of our month prep, was sitting around on Saturday mornings, drinking coffee, half watching TV, and like just brainstorming, which is how we ended up with the Quaker halflings and stuff. And so when we sat with our players, we're like, so here's the world we have.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself fitting into it, and kind of going from that? And that was one too. I think we did a lot of like pre-pitch. I think we actually started gaming. Our first time we sat down, we gamed.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, 20 years ago, we weren't talking about session 0s and stuff.
Right.
That was
exactly.
like, you came with your character made.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but you knew the 4 idiots or 5 idiots who were going to be at your table, because they were at your table, and there wasn't an online presence, and there wasn't a, hey, I'm putting out a pitch for this game. Who can play? This is the time slot I have available. Right. Okay. And that, nowadays it's like auditioning.
Well, I think honestly, having like done some of this stuff myself, I even think if I were playing with my buddies around the table again, later this year when we can actually do that, I would still say for any new game, I'd want to have a get together that is a session 0 get together, where it is just a sit down and run through a couple of things. Partially for peace of mind, partially it's just because it can be fun if you do it right. Yeah. And to give some room to have that clearing of air about disputes about rules and things like that.
X cards and
yeah. Well, that was something else too that I did not ever think to include until the last couple of years. And there's a lot of variations on it, but that idea of acknowledging that things might get uncomfortable. And I think that conversation needs to happen in every group with an agreement of how to address the discomfort. And even and the thing that struck me, because I was, we were going last night, for example, it's like, I don't think we're going to come across anything potential verbatim that's likely to be the big red flags,
right,
in a game published by WotC's right now. I think they're going a direction. 20 years ago, yeah, I can see some things being a little bit,
yeah,
maybe they'd put it out. But at the same time, it's like a lot of people, I should say everyone, but a lot of people have, there are things that like squick them out that might not seem that serious to other people. And that's just their personal thing.
Yeah. The trigger warning stuff nowadays is pretty extensive. I had a DM who was, he was running a module and didn't realize that there were spiders in the next encounter. And so he made them like cartoony, instead of being like arachnids and slobber and webbing and spiky, talons for front legs and whatnot. He was like, oh, they're kind of like plushies, and they're more like octopuses than spiders,
And Grounded, the video game that just came out last year, they actually have a setting where you can turn back the realism of the spiders.
Yes.
And I think I don't know if it's something where there's documented evidence that this is a very predominant fear, or if maybe someone on the dev team has a really strong fear of spiders. But I think it's the first video game I've come across where you can actually go in and within the base code say, I need to mod this.
Right.
That kind of thing's always been the subject of the mod community, is to go in and say, you can replace all of this enemy with this other one.
Right.
And so that one I think is kind of a neat twist on it. My one's eyeballs. Anything involving eyeballs makes me really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But a lot of people aren't fazed by it. So I could see that kind of thing creeping up without, you blinking on it. So that was another thing that I think you want to get out there, is to have at least 2 different layers, if you can, of communication tools.
Yes.
Verbal, nonverbal, anonymous if possible, but that's usually kind of hard to do in a setting where at some point you're going to have to talk about what happened, that this came up as a thing.
Yeah.
But that chance to say something. Go ahead.
Well, and I think too that's part of that. I mean, if you a quick Google search, there's the safety tools, the session 0 questionnaires that are out there and stuff now. And then like you're saying, a way for the players to reach you privately and offline too. And that's always one that when I've run stuff online, I like to ask for boundaries, because I get caught up in story a lot of times when I'm DMing, particularly the one I run every month it's a once a month one shot, and it's all improv. So the yes and can be stacked on very quickly and can go wildly, because all the players are allowed to, introduce things into the world too in that one. And I find that, like I said, if we all are aware of where our lines and veils are at, then we're much less likely to get into an awkward situation.
Yeah, and that's something that it's easy to kind of like, it feels weird, because on the one hand, I think when someone says safety mechanisms, you think, well, how on earth, why do you need safety? Are you going to like poke an eye out with a D4? Which, for the record, it is absolutely possible. I think at least one of us has taken a die to the face in a way that was uncomfortable in that moment. Do a game long enough, you'll get hit with everything at the table.
Pass out on your dice.
Yeah, but I don't know what else you would ever call these, because really it does come down to that mental health thing, that like ending up in a place where you're like, I don't want to go back there because I just feel profoundly uncomfortable. And it's not about, it's really about making sure that the gaming experience is a positive one for all players.
Right. And even like we've said before, there's, you know, character death, um, you know, loss of a loved one, broken hearts, all that heavy emotional stuff. If everybody's at the table and everybody's about it, then sure, let it fly. You know, that's amazing. Just know where your lines are, and then, you know, keep everybody comfortable. So.
Yeah. One thing I've seen for in-person gaming that I, at the time, I kind of like looked at because it was like my first exposure, was just literally putting a sheet of paper that has the stop, pause, and play buttons on it in the middle of the table.
Yeah.
And just kind of it's just right there. And if you need to push a button, here are the buttons.
Yep.
I think it had a rewind button too and a fast forward button. And so
Nice.
like, it was one of those where you didn't even have to say anything. I mean, the DM did say, please let me see that you're pushing the button. Don't like sneak it in.
Right.
But that sense of like, okay, this is uncomfortable. We need to stop this. We need to pause this. I need to back that up. Something happened that I'm not sure about. We need to back everything up for a second and figure out what happened. Or we all know where this is going.
Or someone misheard.
Yeah.
You know, there's times where I've been at a table where, you know, someone went, huh, what? You know, and like, and like you said, pause. Can we go over that again? Yeah. First time I ever saw it was live was at convention, and it was just an index card with a red marker and an X on it. And it was in the middle of the table, and they were like, if ever we need to take a moment, just put your hand on the X, and we will stop and, you know, recalibrate. You know, so obviously you guys got past your pitch, you got past your pre-game, and did you get into well, I'm hoping, or I think it sounds like you got into, did people come with pre-made characters, or did you make them as you were there at the table?
Well, that for a session 0, I think you can kind of go either way. People can bring characters that they want, that they're thinking about. I prefer generally for session 0 people to come with a concept, and then as a group we make sure the concepts are going to make a good group.
Yeah.
And it was interesting too. The last couple times I've played, like my Sunday night game, Azteki really had no idea what he wanted to do. He played a lot of CRPG, computer RPGs. He's like, oh, I think I kind of have this. Maybe I'll do Paladin. Sounds interesting. And so he started checking the boxes. But it was like, well, let's see. The party has this, this, and this. Yeah, Paladin will fit in. Yeah. But I've been to a lot of games too where people skip this phase. They all come character pre-made, and you look at the table and go, I don't think these people would get along.
Right.
Like, I'm going to be working really hard story-wise to figure out why you two haven't murdered each other in the first 15 minutes.
Right. The first, as an example, again, you know, having the technology available to us now and playing online, the first game, well, okay, LB and Indoor's first streamed game was with me and a guy named Sir Lucian, and we were the Monster Squad. And before the game even began, it was 50 plus Discord messages a day about characters, and, you know, oh my God, I'm from here, and this is the thing, and this person is that, and how did you get to there, and oh, did you travel from where you were born to here, and then did we meet up? So like I said, it was like, I don't know, it was like a week or so of 50 plus messages. Every time I opened my Discord, there was like 50 messages. You know, I was like, okay, I got to get in on this.
It almost sounds like you basically had a session 0 asynchronously.
Yes, exactly.
And that's
so
great.
Well, and also what it does too is it can make those. So a lot of the games I enjoy have connections built in, relationships and things that are built into the game. Well, those session 0 moments are where your characters can pitch ideas and stuff. Like again, LB and Indoor, they like to play siblings. So a lot of times they will play siblings, or RJ and Wings, they'll make their characters, you know, intertwined somehow. So you get those connections to even before the game begins, and that way you've got something going.
Okay, so as a fellow old fart, when a couple comes to the table, does your experience indicate that there's a preference one way or the other? Are they coming as a pair, or are they coming as two split characters who arrive together?
I would say over the decades, it's most likely that they are going to be a couple in some way, shape, or form. That is the most prevalent. I would say the second is that they're relatives. That a lot of times a couple will play relatives would be second. Third would be they come to the table as separate characters, but they're looking for love.
They have plans. Won't it be cool if we start off like we don't know each other?
Yep. There's a game that I still have yet to actually play, but I love the concept of it. It is 10 Robanchi Zero. It's a Japanese role-playing game, and it has it has a chart, a first time. Every time you meet an NPC, all the characters roll on the chart, and it immediately tells you your relationship with that character. So, you know, it's the total anime thing where it's, you know, you are what's the actual term? You know, you love each other, but you're enemies, frenemies, or whatever. And so the chart is all, you know, and there's stuff on there like they killed your sister, you know, they are your long lost sibling. It's all the biggest, craziest anime type stuff forever. So, and you have to remember, everybody rolls it. So if you have 4 players at the table, you meet a new NPC, it's 2 of you could be, you know, in love with them, or one of you could hate them and one of you could love them, or one of them, they could have killed one of your guys' sisters, you know. So it really just, it's just,
I love the concept. I'm going to hit Google here. Okay, Reddit has an NPC relationship random generator. Naturally. That was like top hit. That's crazy. But that is so brilliant. And that sounds a lot like once it depends. I mean, you can do things in any order you like. We did it. I tend to do it later, and once everyone has their characters locked in.
Yeah,
I do the random relationship tables that you find in the back of the Kids on Bikes rule book.
Oh, nice.
And I keep they actually provided those charts free online, and I keep them bookmarked.
Yeah.
And it's there are 3 tables. There's a person you know positive, person you know negative, and person you don't know. And so if it's someone you don't know, there's this random thing, and it was really neat. And it's consistent because I've done it twice with groups streaming, and both times the first 3 questions are really awkward. Everyone's kind of looking around the Zoom call at each other like, okay, I'm supposed to say that I hate your character, or I secretly hate this habit of your character. And it's neat, and because once the first couple of questions are done, after the first couple of times someone says something, everyone kind of starts to warm because they get that everyone's doing it to each other.
Right.
So at first you feel like you're picking on somebody, and then it's like, okay, no, we're all going to pick on each other.
Right.
But there was a brilliant moment last night, and I think it was Jesse who was one who says, it says more about me and my character when I identify what it is about your character I secretly find annoying.
Yeah.
And it's like, in that moment, like, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of backstory wrapped up in the fact that you are constantly annoyed at the way she trims her fingernails.
And then it says to you as a player, I have to either be obsessed with my fingernails or I don't do anything with my fingernails, and then it's, you know.
Or you probably don't do that much bad with it.
Right.
And a lot of it's in their head and they get to play off of it.
Right.
And it's like, it's just a really neat, and that usually comes for us later. Like I usually do that really late in session 0.
Yeah.
Because it's such a high energy exchange. And it happened last night too. You kind of crash afterwards. Like everyone goes through this and you fill in the rubric. And then there's this like, I don't know how else to describe it. There's this like slump where it's really hard to go up another level.
Right.
From that. And it worked out really well because that's usually how we wrap up the session. Like, okay, and the next session we're actually going to play these characters. Like, and then everyone can, that anticipation swells again. But you could almost flip that in a session 0 and do all that crap at the when you're still like, who are we going to be?
Yeah.
Well, let's get a race. Yeah. Let's get a physical description. Put those on the table. Now let's do the relationship stuff. Now pick your classes.
Right. Right.
Now decide who we are.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see where it would say something too about if you did it the first way and you knew, and then you were like, maybe I have a thing against all fighters. Why do I have a thing against all fighters? And, you know, so it really does get your brain rolling on, you know, who am I? I'll sidetrack a little bit.
Oh, please.
We've got time.
We like sidetracks.
So what'd you end up with character-wise?
For our Wednesday group?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because when we sat down, Linarius was said a couple times this was her first ever Dungeons and Dragons game. And she's a computer gamer, so she's, you know, she kind of gets some of the concepts and everything, but first time she ever actually played it. And so I was like, okay, we're really gonna have to coach her. And then when we started doing stuff, she's like, oh yeah, I got this figured out. I'm an elven monk. I'm the kung fu style monk, and you know, the whole kind of thing. So she dove in on that. Jesse's playing a genasi, a water genasi bard.
Yeah.
Who is an introvert.
Okay. Nice.
And is mostly angry. Like, and one of the things, there were a couple of things that came out. One of them was she doesn't like being asked. They do not like being asked to perform.
Right.
They are amazing performers when they choose to be.
Yeah.
But if someone ever approaches and says, "Are you willing to get up on stage and do a thing?" Their stock answer is no.
Right.
Because they don't do that. They do it on their own terms. We also have a fire genasi rogue.
Fire and water.
Which we're still trying to figure out. There was a little chatter off to the side about something going on, and I was watching the Twitch chat and running the session. I did not see the full outcomes of the chat in the Zoom chat.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what's going on there with the two genasis. And then the fourth character is a half-elven barbarian that we are referring to as a half-elven berserker.
Right.
Partially because she is a fifth generation librarian. And is having a rough go with the family trade.
Nerd rage. Yeah.
And in that sessions, in those background questions, one of the questions that was pitched to her that the Molly who's playing our rogue had to answer was, what is it about this character you really find impressive that they don't notice about themselves?
Yeah.
And the answer was, she always seems to know exactly what book someone's looking for before they finish asking. And it was one of those great moments where we were like, oh my gosh, that is epic and awesome. And hey, Ear, glad to have you hanging out today. And I said, you know what? That is so clever and so cool and so thematic. Tiff's character gets double advantage on any insight check related to what book someone wants.
Nice.
You still got to roll. You might be wrong from time to time, but it's going to be hard to miss that one.
Yeah.
And it was funny too, because Tiff's like, okay, so where do I put that on my character sheet? I don't see a spot to add special abilities that are homebrewed. And I'm like, we'll figure it out later. we'll add it in. To answer the question from the chat, the previous broadcast, I'm an idiot, and I forgot that after you raid, you still are streaming. So there was 30 minutes of me getting up, walking around, getting water, talking to my daughter, telling her she needs to go to bed, and all that other great stuff because I forgot to turn off the stream. And there's no way to edit a past broadcast. But if you look, the highlight is up. So that's just the actual show itself. I cut out the pre and post. It's also on YouTube. And I believe there's a link somewhere down in the about in the socials. So you can always check it out over on YouTube. And thank you for looking for it. I appreciate that. Our topic today is Session 0. So we're talking about last night to a degree and other great experiences we've had kicking a game off and some really horrific experiences. Because I have to share one.
All right.
About a Session 0 that did not work. And it didn't work because he wasn't present for Session 0.
Oh.
And this was when I was running a game at a youth center. And we had a Session 0. We all kind of did the character creation. We all pitched our ideas to each other. We all talked to each other. The players were all preteen to young teen. Were kind of on board with okay, this is going to be kind of a custom game. It'll be kind of fun. And what ended up happening was someone showed up to the next game wanting to play.
Yeah.
And he already had a character made. And I'm a huge believer in either point buy or standard array.
Yes.
I really believe that it's important for a game for no one person to be great at everything.
Yes.
And one of my complaints is that when you end up with that a player who is just really knocking it out, it's too easy for them to shine in every situation. Yep. You know, everybody make a wisdom save, and then bam, he's guaranteed to hit. And everyone make a charisma check. Oh, and he's guaranteed to hit. It's like, that's not entertaining. You can't. Right. It's not fun. And he was like, nope. This is my character. This is what I'm going to play.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the way things were set up, I didn't ever have a chance. Like, I couldn't tell him no.
Right.
As much as I would have liked to have said, well, then you can't play at this table, I was contractually obligated to let everyone play. And after about 4 sessions, it became one where he did not like me, and most of the table did not like him. Because what was happening is we get into a combat, and it's like, okay, the Birdman monk flies up and does this, and this, and that's the end of that.
Yeah.
And
So we used to run Western Michigan Gamers Guild, and so it was one of those things where, you know, there'd be 60 of us, you know, show up on a Friday night, and we'd have, you know, 5 or 6 games that were being run, and, you know, you would fall into one of those slots or, you know, whatever. And we tried to, because this was before the internet, and and stuff. So the Friday before, you would kind of put out the word, hey, next Friday we're playing champions, you know, make a character with X amount of points, la la la. I'm taking 6 players, who's playing, you know, kind of thing. And yeah, back in those days, no Session 0. There were times where, you know, or the dreaded, hey, you've got a spot at your table. Can I bring this character from another campaign in? And
danger, Will Robinson.
The one I remember specifically was, so I took the leadership feat, and so I'm 8th level, and my leadership feat allows me to have like a 6th level character. So they suddenly appeared in the campaign with 2 characters, and, you know, it just, oh my God, they're just, again, no Session 0. torture. You know, to say the things that have gone wrong. So
Okay,
that's one of them.
okay. Is it? Can I raise now?
Sure.
So here's one, and I'm never going to miss a chance to talk about this. One thing that you have to do in session 0 is you have to talk about party betrayal. If you think it's a thing. Now, I did not do this last night because I'm willing to bet a significant number of bits and at least 3 emotes.
All right.
That it's not going to be an issue with this group.
Right.
But when I was in college, back at there was a game that ran an entire year, September to May.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is at the end of the campaign, one of the players betrayed everyone and the campaign failed.
Yep.
And when that guy came back the following September and said, I'm running another D&D game this year, he had like one chance to save it because someone said, are we going to, is a total party wipe due to betrayal going to happen again in your game? And his answer was, I don't know. We'll see. And then no one sat down with them.
Right.
Like, and I thought, that's the kind of thing where you got to be upfront with players. If you're going to take their investment and go with it, like you really need to be on your game to not lose. You need to be upfront that that's the kind of game you're playing.
Yeah. And if 6 people sit down and are like, I am all about this, then it could be an amazing, incredible game.
Also, check your wallet when they walk past you.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. I came in with a wallet and a phone and keys. I have a phone and keys. Okay.
I would almost rather have the wallet than the keys because you get out to the lot and you're like,
don't take my phone.
I remember when things started to change as far as like, party comp and party cohesion and all that started to have some more flex to it, because you would back in the day when someone would be that character, that wild card, that buck the system, not team player, blah blah blah, the party would turn on them in a heartbeat. And so I think like Vampire did a lot for opening that up and making it okay to have rivals and play off each other and have machinations and behind the scenes things,
And that again goes back to the importance of that create your characters together and get everyone on the same page.
Yeah.
Because I ran a werewolf game one summer at a game shop, and one of the characters took Vampire Companion as one of their advantages. Yeah. So they had a Toreador, which are the artsy fartsy vampires, companion, and she was like, I wrote her up as a very hedonistic, very like out there artsy fartsy, like bright red convertible, Louis Vuitton heels, real fur coats in July, because that's what you do when you have that kind of money.
All right.
Granted, it was like the fur stole and then like this little slip dress, but still. And then every time they would call on her, one of the other guys at the table would start organizing his dice up, and he'd start a countdown. And if we were still in that scene 10 minutes later, he says, I'd like to roll initiative to attack the vampire now. And that was like, the first time it was like, okay, let's get her out of here before this gets bad. And then the next 2 times we met and that she came into the storyline, he did the exact same thing. He's like, well, here's how it works. She's a vampire. I'm going to kill her. Yeah. And I said, you can't kill her. The guy put the points into the advantage. You're taking those points away from his character and you're punishing him. And his answer was, I don't care. It's what my character would do. And that's a loaded phrase when players say that. It's not the what my character would do that's the problem. It's usually the I don't care part. Because I also have a player right now who's kind of like learning how to think like his character, and I don't ever want to have him pull back from that.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's the stuff you hammer out in session 0. You say, my character is going to take the vampire companion advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Is that cool with everybody? And if it's not cool, how do we make it cool? Because I really want it.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do to make this work?
And even if it is, they play that tension, like just make a move, vampire, you know, and they can bounce off each other. And what is your problem, you know?
Well, and part of that was like my naivete as a dungeon master was I did not pick up on the vibes well enough to make it a relationship that could have the rivalry without it being but I'm a vampire, you can't touch me, I'm the DM, I made this character up, you're going to have to accept it.
Yeah.
And that was on me. I did not do a good job of communicating with the player who had the hatred to be confident that this was still going to make everybody have a good time at the table.
Yeah.
And so that was a misstep on my part, that I could have done a better job of saying, hey, this rivalry sounds like it's going to get pretty serious, rather than me caveating or hand waving or just telling you, look, you're going to accept it. I could have done a better job of saying, look, you're not enjoying this aspect of the game. Is there room for us to find a way for us both to enjoy it more? Because I really kind of like this character too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of goes back to our I don't know, 4 episodes ago or something, when we did the whole My Precious campaign, and the DM who was like, you can just walk away, the meme, we did the meme
You're
episode.
An angry DM.
Yeah. So with that, going back to that situation, I can remember, being, that DM a long time ago, where, I really wanted the story to go in a way, and it, you put in all that effort, that's the I created this for you, and now you're, besmirching my story. That was, you gotta, I think I actually put that out as my Tuesday tip or something last week, was or someone had asked something about what you had done or how you have changed as a DM, and I said I went from telling my story to enjoying how our story goes,
And that is really on point. A question from the chat, which is on point, so I think it's worth bringing in. And we love having anyone who's hanging out with chat during a live recording. We do it live so you can bring the questions and the comments and be part of the show. Is asking for a clarification about some of these session 0 things. When I did the relationship questions the last time we played, I made a point of asking the players to, if possible, not hard veto anything. So if someone had suggested something in session 0 that someone else said, I don't know if I want to do that, to try to avoid the hard veto and to massage it. So maybe not this, but that.
Right.
And I'm not sure how that translates to, because I know in improv, the rule is you never say no.
Yeah. Yes. And
yes.
But yeah, no, and is also available, or how about X,
Right. Because I wanted to encourage them to take some chances and maybe accept something that at the first, because here's the twist with when you assign faults to other players' characters. It can feel really weird to have someone tell you your character has a limp, or your character has a mole in a spot that makes them unattractive, or acknowledge that there's something not perfect about your creation. And so it's tough, but sometimes it can be kind of neat to say, wouldn't it be neat if your character had this negative quirk?
Right.
Your character had this thing that's not, that takes them down from perfect.
Right.
And so how do we find a way to make it so that there is that again, like we said before, says a lot about the character who identifies it, who goes, I think she's kind of rude sometimes. Well, what about her makes you think that? Like,
Right.
that says a lot about you.
Yeah. And is it just you who thinks that? And is it because you're jealous of them? Or is it something they actually do? You know, and then both players can play off that, you know?
Absolutely. And that's a lot of the fun of that element of the character creation. I think too, as we were talking about the worlds and the pitch and the My Precious bit, is I also think there's a lot to be said for letting players know up front what your boundaries are, not just like comfort boundaries, but like in this world, there are certain, so we're all on the same page. There are certain things that are off limits.
Yeah.
If you're running like a modern game, you're not going to get away with murder.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, I mean, you can, but it's a thing to do in the modern world. You can't just, you know, any community where there's a murder, there's going to be a reaction to it.
Right.
It's not hand waved, generally speaking. And so it's not a terrible idea to let your players know these are things that there's risks to certain behaviors because of the nature of the universe. And make sure they have a chance to go, well, I don't know if I want to play in a game like that. I want to play in a game that's a action movie. And you know, as long as it's a nameless extra, he can take 4 bullets. That's okay. It's a nameless extra. Who cares?
Right.
If he's not in the opening credits, in the little print in the bottom while we're going through that opening montage, he's up for grabs.
Yeah. If it's thug number 7,
he's going to go down hard.
Yeah.
But I ran a game of Vampire once where one of the players decided to get really, it was set in the 19th century. And one of the players like went into a British lord's townhouse in the upper part of London.
Okay.
And like trash talked.
Yeah.
And when the lord, who was also a vampire and has been a vampire for a very long time, dressed him down, he got lippy.
Right.
And it was like, and I remember in the moment, this is another one of those, I'll freely admit I failed as a DM.
Right.
It was like, I was not prepared. I mean, what I should have done in hindsight, I should have said, we're going to stop for the week.
Yeah.
We're all going to go home. And we're going to talk later about what happened tonight.
Right.
What I did in the moment was, and your character's dead.
Yeah.
I'm not rolling dice. This is an elder vampire that's 600 years old. You've been around for like 50. There's 0 chance you're going to survive this combat. We don't need to roll for it.
Yeah.
The only rules we're going to make is to get the blood out of the upholstery. And the walls. And the books. And the chandelier. And the upstairs glass. And I mean, it's just like, I'm sorry, man. But again, I'll take the blame, and I'll take the blame for not doing a better job of saying, like, this is something you just can't do in this universe.
Right. Yeah. We had a game that we were playing in, and I was a medieval studies major for a while in college, and the 3 of the other players in the game were all Society of Creative and Acronym guys. And so my lords and my ladies and, you know, all the courtly bows and all that stuff was just what they do every weekend, you know? And we added a new guy into that game who didn't understand that stuff. And the GM, so the local lord had hired our party to come and be like new people in his, like retainers in his town and stuff. And this new player was the kennel keeper, kennel master, and
master of the hounds.
Exactly. And so they so at one point we went out to do something, and they mouthed off to the Lord, and the DM was like, "Some back," you know, slaps the character, and the player's like, "What?" shing, he goes to draw a weapon and like attack the Lord, and nope, hold me back, we and then they were like they dressed him down like you're saying, totally like, I am your lord and I will hang you from a gibbet if if you dare raise your voice to me again. And luckily at the time we did go pause, and we went, this is a medieval feudal lord, he is everything here. And then we each went around the table and took a turn explaining, like, oh yeah, I'm a wizard, but this guy owns the land and the soldiers and everything. He is the law, and so everybody kind of explained it to this person. So that player, good thing the player did, I loved how they reacted, because they were not a history person at all. They then held this secret revenge plot and ran that through. So it came out well, but it could have been handled better on the front end. Yes. if we had explained, this is like a real medieval society we're playing in, and there are rules and status and station.
So. Absolutely. And those are things too that there are ways to help with that when you have people who don't make it to a session 0 to lay those out. And welcome aboard, Vinny. And yes, last night was a really exciting night. There were a lot of subs gifted out, and you probably got caught in one of the blurs of them. So, but if you hang around, or I think there's a way you can check to see who it was that did the gifting, and you can send them a whisper. I haven't played that much with it, but one the thing too that I wish I had thought of a long time ago is just the classic, because every game system has them, the insight check. You want to do a thing, do me a favor, roll a wisdom save, and then you make the DC like 5, and you say, this is something you would probably know. To give people that out. But it's that chance though in that first session to say, hey, these are some things you should kind of be thinking about.
Yeah, this is the society as whole, or these are the rules, oh, we're playing Shadowrun. Now, you can get away with Shadowrun stuff in the Hive City, but when you go uptown or get to the Megacorp, you can't carry guns.
That's the rules change.
The rules change. Yeah, so, and that stuff, again, to set up in I almost said season 1. Session 0.
Well, it's interesting. I have 2 thoughts. First thought, tangent, the term real estate actually is derived from royal estates, and the idea that all property and everything on it was owned by a lord,
right?
Which is also why the lord would have a huntsman who was allowed to go harvest deer and ducks and everything, but if you hunted for food, it was poaching.
Yes, their warden or huntsman could hunt you.
Yes. So there's that opportunity to that's like that weird little quirky thing that happens. But something else too that I know about, at least with video games, because it was always talked about with City of Heroes, was the Bible. City of Heroes, when it launched, had a document that was fairly well established as having been like part of their stuff, and it was just the rules of the universe. In this universe, this is how this works. In this universe, this is who these people are. In this universe, this is what happens. And they called it the Bible because the whole universe was intertangled with itself. And so you had to go, we want to introduce the storyline. We'll check the Bible before you do, because we don't want to compromise anything that provides consistency within this universe. And that's something else too. As you develop a game, you might start writing one of those. Yeah. So that if there's a precedent, you can even tell a player, hey, you want to skim this thing over. It's kind of like the crib sheet of our not just session 0, but our first 10 sessions, where we did a lot of the world building, and we met these people and we got to know who they are and that kind of thing.
And that too is part of the session 0 thing, is saying what you don't want. because a lot of times that's the easier way for me when we're after the pitch and we're starting to kibitz and build our universe and such. A lot of times it will be easier for me to go, oh wait, time travel, you know, do we have time travel? Is that off the table? You know, or the ones that I get pushback from the grognards, which are just staples now as far as I'm concerned in fantasy, is guns, airships, you know, guns, airships, automatons, steampunky stuff. Does that exist in our D&D campaign? And my grognards always go, no. And I always go, boo.
Well, you know, it's interesting because a lot of those Session Zero surveys that come out often include not just the things that will squick you out, but things that are elements of a potential game that you can say, oh, I don't know if I really want to get that into that in my game. You know, I don't want my elves to hate my dwarves. I don't want there to be black powder pistols. I don't want there to be airships. If someone says time travel, my next question is, okay, which time travel are you using? Are you using the multiverse? Are you using time as a single flow? Are you using
it is what do I always say? Is your line strings or loops?
Yeah. And well, that's if you're gonna bring time travel into a game, if you go multiverse, that lets that lets characters have more freedom to do things. But if you go, oh no, there's one timeline, any good aligned character should be freaking out during a time travel event.
Right.
They should be completely freaked out.
We're gonna get back and there's no donuts.
Yeah, and that's because again, you just gotta be careful about that. But also leads into, by the way, if you want to run a time travel game, I highly recommend, if you've never seen it, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, the movie. I thought you meant I was like, oh, the role play game?
No, the movie. Well, it is cited as one of the best examples of appropriate use of time travel. And then you watch Back to the Future as to how time travel doesn't work.
Right.
Like there's no evidence. I mean, because it's not a multiverse and it's not a single string.
Yeah.
And then you read the Dragonlance novels, the Chronicles, because they actually have a really neat view of it that I think works really well when you start bringing gods into it. And the gods. Are you familiar with what it was?
I can't remember it.
It was.
I mean, I remember reading them, but I don't remember.
Mild spoiler for like the end of book 1 in the trilogy. Time cannot be changed because the gods willed time into existence. So you can do whatever you want while you time travel because the gods willed it all in, and time will always travel in a straight line because it is the will of the gods. The catch
fix itself
is that dwarves and Kender were not created by the gods; they were created by demigods, and therefore they are immune to that. Therefore, they can change the flow of time.
Ooh, Tasselhoff.
Yeah, you saw that one coming. But so I think, and this actually ties in really well. Ear wants to know, how long do you play D&D before you get confident as a GM? And I think that's still, there are two things we can do. We can do that as an end of stream question, or we can bring it in now as we're talking about session 0. My gut answer to that is I am never confident as a GM. And because I am always, I took over running a game for the first time in 1981. I think it was the first time I said, I can do this. I'll run a game. No, 83. It was 83. Which would have put me at not that old, but old enough to go, well, here's a list of stats for a monster. Here's a character sheet. Here you go, sister. Here you go, neighbor. Try to kill the orc.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning things that would make me better at it, and things I wish I had done a lot sooner. So things like the session 0. What do we all want from the game? What are all of our limits? making sure that characters aren't going to want to murder each other 15 minutes. And these are things I'm learning now, and I've been, 20 plus years at the table. Do you have a better answer than that?
Oh, so it's not better. I mean, every answer from everyone is going to be that individualistic. I mean, I just did the math because I was wrong, and so I did the math. As of the Memorial Day weekend this year, I will have been playing for 44 years. So yeah. Oh my God. So, I started playing when I was like 8. I think it was my 8th birthday. And then within, 2 years or so, my buddies were like, because our GM was so much older than us that he went off to join the army. And so by the time I was 10, we had no GM. And so then the kids who were left were like, you're the GM. And I was like, oh, okay. And
you own all the books. Obviously, you're the GM.
Yeah, duh. Well, and then when I moved to a certain neighborhood, I introduced a bunch of people to D&D and role play games and everything. So we would pool our little money and buy new stuff, and it was always shoved in my face like, you learn it and teach us, So I would say generally after a couple years, you're usually pretty, set. You're not scared, you're not frightened. But I will say I get excited and nervous for new games to this day, to this day. Now, what I will say is I'm such an improv player that even if I have nothing prepared, I'm generally like, I can get through a single session just winging it. And that just comes with experience. But I'd say, you after you've been playing for a couple years, and then when you start GMing, I'd say generally after the first couple years, you feel comfortable enough with the system you're playing, if you've been in the same system, to where you should start feeling like, okay, I'm ready for this. But you will never get rid of that first game nerves and, oh my God, this is so awesome.
Well, a lot. I mean, I fake a lot of the confidence, and I like to think I fake it pretty well. But a lot of that though also depends on who you're playing with, because if I were to sit down with a group of people that were like, I've been playing D&D since, 2nd edition, and I'm excited to get playing again. I've read all the rules for 5th edition. I'm going to feel a different sense of what's expected of me. And I might not be confident in my knowledge of the rules, whereas I'm pretty confident in my ability to come up with a compelling story. I'm very confident in my ability to communicate rules to people, to communicate the description of an environment to somebody. I'm a teacher by vocation, so I've become over the years very confident in my ability to say, here's how this is going to work, here are your options. And I would say I probably, like, if I were to be new to gaming, I would still be confident in those things. Even when I pick up a new system that I don't know the rules, I'm lucky in that I can say, well, at least I can communicate what's happening. All I got to do now is figure out, how do we get around the rule set? So if I have a group of players that are, we're here for a good time, we're here for a fun story, that makes me feel more confident because it's in my comfort zone. The more like I want my miniature on the table, I want to mark off the 30 feet that I have for my move, the less confident I get because I know the expectation is different. So I know that I'm aiming for something different, which is a really weird, it's a really roundabout answer. I would say, well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. It's not my first session 0, and I'm incredibly blessed with amazing players, and that's the best part. The biggest thing to make any game successful is have everyone coming with the same expectations, and I'm very lucky that all 5 of us are coming in with a let's tell a fun story.
Yeah.
And thankfully I don't have to write this one, so if anything goes pear-shaped, I can just blame it on whoever wrote the adventure, and then we turn to a new one. So like when things go off the rails, I can go, okay, let's wrap this one up, and then we'll turn to chapter 5. And hopefully that will be better.
You, Jeremy Crawford, I'm looking at you.
Although, just to continue down that road, I was disappointed. Okay, shifting gears into Candlekeep Adventures review.
All right.
Having skimmed through the first several chapters now, I am a little disappointed at how much we don't have for guidance about the individual adventures around them.
Oh.
So like the first adventure is a nice, neatly packed little dungeon crawl with a good hook. But there's not a lot of like, how did your characters get the hook? And in one sense, it's really good if you're running a campaign now and you're like, I need a 3-week break.
Yeah.
Let's run a Candlekeep mystery. And you can do it. Like you can like I could right now with my Sunday night game.
Yeah.
I could totally say we need a break from the grim dark vampires and banshees and werewolves. I'm going to run this lighthearted-ish mystery dungeon crawl for a couple of weeks. And I could totally get my PCs to bite it and go.
Yeah.
But I do have some prep work because as we were getting ready to wrap down last night, and I said, let's get a little bit of a setup. I realized just how loose everything was going in to get to the end. Gunstar, thank you for hosting me over there and sharing our chat with all of your followers. That's awesome. We appreciate that. But now that said, we're going to be running this first adventure is a really neat, tight little, like once we get into it, it's going to be awesome. I'm so geeked for it. But a lot of that goes down to, I'm also feeling really confident because we've laid out the foundations we need to be sure we're set up for some success.
Yeah.
I think part of my confidence in my teaching comes from having done enough prep with enough experience that I feel confident I can handle the curveballs.
Yeah.
If there are any. And that's when, like, I don't know how long it took for me to get there because it varies with groups and it varies with the group and it varies with the mechanics. Shadowrun, back when I was in high school, I mean, I hadn't run a lot of games yet when I started playing Shadowrun, but I either took a published adventure or wrote an adventure and was running it, well, you know, within a year when I was 17.
Yeah. I remember when I got to college, I had and one of the grognards who is now 30 years later in my game, you know, on Saturday nights, he used to hate me because I would come to a session with like a 3x5 card with notes on it and then like some half-assed drawing on the back of like a map or a layer or something, and I would run sessions off a 3x5 card, and he would just be like, how do you do that, you know? And I'd just be like, at this point I've been doing it for 12 years, you know. The time I was like 9 or 10, I'd been doing it. So I got to college, it'd been like almost 10 years that I've been, you know, running games. And I mean like running games every chance we had, all weekend, every weekend, you know. That was what we did when we were kids.
Oh yeah. Well, when I was in college, my buddy Ogre, he had a game every night of the week.
Yeah.
Monday nights were Shadowrun, Tuesdays were Star Wars, Thursdays was Game Club night, so it was whatever he felt like running for Game Club. I think he did a Saturday afternoon into evening D&D, and Sundays were beer and pretzels games.
Right.
So games like Teenagers from Outer Space, Toon, Paranoia, anything he could run as anything he could run as a, here's a character sheet, you have 15 minutes to fill it out, and then we're going to play for 2 hours.
Yep.
So nothing that required a great deal of depth, and all of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, you know, that's part of how we got to where we were, is just a lot of repetition, practice, and support from the players.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing makes you feel good about it as when people say, I'm going to take over and I'm going to keep doing what you were doing. and those kinds of moments.
Well, yeah, or you find them emulating your style, or stuff, or when people after a session are like, yeah, I just wow, like I said, I love to run Dungeon World at conventions because introducing, I like to run it as a never played Dungeon World, want to try, and just having them be like, wow, why have I been playing, this other game for so long, and, get excited about it. Wait, I look like a movie star? Oh,
Unfortunately, I don't recognize the reference, or
I don't either,
I
but
don't.
that's fine.
Can we get more to help build that
I
up?
appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take anything that says I look like someone who's not like Thug Number 7. I'll take that. So I think when we look back on session 0, we talked about the safety mechanisms as something that I don't think either of us were doing back in the day, but we're glad we do now. We talked about expectations. We talked about character design as a team.
Yeah.
So that if you have tension, the tension going in. Well, we're like, as we're getting into this, the last few minutes of our show today, what else did we come up with that you remember as some things we want to make sure we include in our collection?
Yeah, it was the safety tools, the pitch. Even before the session 0, you want the pitch, the connections between characters. You want to either push that or have a mechanism within the game to push that, so that you have so you have some point of reference. Define your universe. Give your universe its physics.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good idea. That sense of like, if you're going to do things, here's what you should know about what you're going to try to do.
Right. So, yeah, I think those were the high points, and then just telling tales of woe, things not to do.
Which gets back to like the ultimate bit of advice for any D&D or any role-playing game of any kind, which is on the character, by the way, is Brandon Gleeson, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the actor who plays Hagrid. Amongst other things.
Right.
I have to look now to see.
That's awesome. Right. Well, then thank you very much. And I'm so horrible. I'm a method player.
No,
and
not Hagrid. Moody.
Not Hagrid. Moody.
Mad-Eye Moody. That actor.
Oh, nice.
And he was the one of the gang bosses in Gangs of New York.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you. If I could do accents on command, I would. But I don't think I can just like that.
But like the biggest advice I would give, and it ties in with your session 0, it ties in with confidence, is it's a 2-part bit of advice, which is to first remember that you are in a relationship with your players. You are all in a friendship relationship as a group. And the only way relationships work is when you communicate. You have to talk about it. You cannot leave things unsaid, because that's where bad things happen.
Right.
And session 0 is like that designated open. This is going to sound crazy, but it's almost like when you're dating, you have session 0s you don't even realize you're having, just to really take that, to go that extra mile. But it's like, hey, what are we? Well, we're this. So what does that mean that we do? It means we do this. I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that? Yes, I am. Boom. And if you have different ideas of what you are, drama. And not the fun popcorn drama. Popcorn for your roommate drama. But,
right.
But yeah, it's all about the communication tool. Talk to your players. Yeah. And see what you have. So where are you going to be doing your next round of things?
My next round of stuff is, because we're not having a session tonight of Masks over on Indoor Adventures, that'll be Sunday. I'll be on Graybeard Tavern Twitch, my channel, and I will be playing with toys and fighting aliens and stuff. We'll be playing Griftlands, which is a role play card game. It's the animation is gorgeous, and we have a good time with it. after that, I'll be back here Tuesday next week instead of this Thursday contrariness. So that's me for right now. This time of year.
I gotta get on my commands. But I'll throw you a shout out.
There it is.
And we'll do that. That's not a bad idea. I should totally get in there. For going forward, Gray and I, this is our regular thing we do together. So I would not use a guest command for that. It's a co-host command. But then for me, I'm going to be, I'm doing light gaming. So just general video gaming the next couple of nights. It's weird with our weekends because my wife works from 5 until midnight. So I don't have anything to do. So that's one of the reasons I stream on the weekends. And plus it's fun to listen to her get angry when I raise my voice on stream too much. And then my next D&D game is going to be Sunday night. We're going to continue with the homebrew Ravenloft game, which is slowly building to the Curse of Strahd. They are in Storm's End. They are dealing with a haunted abandoned castle rumored to be haunted that everyone knows isn't really haunted and is just abandoned, where they have found a gang hiding out. Because
so you did put a gang in the castle?
Oh yeah,
nice.
Well, there's something in the castle,
right?
Because the best place to put something that you don't want people to find is in the abandoned castle that everyone says is haunted but knows isn't.
Right.
So they don't bother it.
Yeah.
So that kind of was what I thought they would do. And that'll be Sunday night. My games my streams usually fire off at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight. So that's an easy way to know when something is. If it's whatever night I'm streaming. The exception is, of course, happy hour. Because by 7, we have to be home.
Yeah. Get some food in my belly.
Yeah. Which never miss a chance to get in here. If you enjoyed hanging out today, and you're listening to this on your podcast platform of choice, you can always come to a live taping at twitch.tv/Lantern Noir. If you are here watching us live, Nightbot has been letting you know where to find us on Spotify and iTunes. Feel free to follow us over there as well. If any of you enjoyed the content we are providing week by week, feel free to leave a review on iTunes. It'll help other people find this particular show and eventually join with this community and bring their amazing ideas to our table for us to dissect and go, oh, well, we tried that back in 1993, and I got to tell you what happened when we did that. Because that's what we do when we become gamers of a certain age. All right. I'm going to send all of you off to a buddy of mine. He streams under the amazing name of Kraken Inferno. He is going to take our casual conversation of happy hour and dial it up to 11. If you have sunglasses at the ready, I advise you grab them. Any parting thoughts, Gray, before we head out?
Eat your leftover corned beef and cabbage there. I tried to do my Irish as best I could on command.
There you go. And remember, folks, if you come in close contact with someone, you're going to want advantage on that con save. Wear a mask. Keep those you care about safe. Until next time, play more games.